Hey, Omar.
Hello, hello. All right. Good afternoon. It's great to see you.
Good afternoon. It's great to see you too. So we're waiting for Harvey and Joseph.
Hmm.
I know I saw them in an early an event, so I know they're here. Um, I don't know if are we told when broadcasting happens, or are we broadcasting now?
I believe we are broadcasting.
Okay. Well, good. Well, hello everyone. So just give us a minute while the other panelists check in. Joseph, I see you're there. Can you hear me? Okay, so Joseph, you may need to maybe do a tech check or something to make sure your video and camera is working. So we're just going to give it a couple of minutes, 12:32, hopefully. In the next 3 minutes, we'll be able to get everyone on. Uh-oh. Looks like we've lost Joseph now.
Oh,
Ah, there you are.
okay.
All right.
That's a relief.
The Reverend has
Whew.
arrived.
Me too, Joseph.
Yeah, man. Wow.
So
I,
I'm
I,
pretty sure I saw Harvey at the morning meditation. I thought, hmm, let's do a quick check, folks, if you'll bear with us. I'm just gonna try to do a quick check on one of our missing panelists, and then we'll get started.
excellent session so far.
Yes, it
Yeah, this is
is.
great. This has been great. Asado is on fire.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you know,
Yes,
and
sir.
I was thinking like this is the reason why like dislike doing these conferences remotely because there's people who you want to go up to and continue a conversation with,
Sure.
and you really
Sure.
can't do that when it's remote. So,
That's true.
but anyway, we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll introduce ourselves. Hopefully, Harvey will be joining us since he's already introduced to us. I think it won't be a
Mhm.
big deal for him to miss that portion. So first, let me welcome you all to building social capital through partnerships and cooperative alliances. I also say that so that you know that you are in the session you
Mhm.
intended to be in case you might want to be somewhere else, but we do hope that you want to be here with us. I am Shelley Miller. I will moderate this panel today. A little bit about me. I'm the outreach manager for the ICA Group, which is a member of the New York City Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative. We refer to as WCBDI, funded by our New York City Council, which is forward looking. We believe in funding it, and administered through our small business service agency in New York. Um, I've served in my role for a little over 2 years, and in this role, I'm seeking to greatly expand the knowledge of and the appreciation for the transformative impact that I believe worker owned cooperatives can have on the American economy, its system, and its workers, especially Black workers or people of color.
Mhm.
My professional experience is pretty broad, but it includes entrepreneurship, having been a small business owner, small business development, as well as community and leadership development and law. I'm based in New York City, and now I'm going to introduce you to today's panelist. I'm going to start with the Reverend Joseph Perry Jr. First, Joseph is pastor of the Living Water AME Church in Stafford, Virginia. He is also a CPA and the director of finance for Greenbelt Homes Inc., a housing cooperative consisting of 1,600 member units and an apartment complex consisting of 60 rental units. He joined Greenbelt Homes in 2008 after serving 3 years as controller at Linens of the Week, Washington, D.C. Prior to this, he was employed, I'm sorry, prior to his employment with Linens of the Week, he served as the senior accounting specialist at the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association. Now, I believe you're based in Maryland. Is that right, or is it Virginia,
Yes,
Joseph?
I'm based in Maryland. Yes.
Okay, good, good. Next, I want to introduce you to Omar Freya. Omar is the co founder and co director of Diaspora Cooperatives, an exciting new global initiative aimed at the development of cooperatives throughout the African diaspora. Omar is a serial trailblazer, social entrepreneur, and movement builder with a passion for building for community self determination and regenerative economies. His work is grounded in his experience growing up in the South Bronx, a child of Dominican immigrants raised by his mother and a network of community organizers. Talking about social capital right there. He founded Green Worker Cooperatives, the oldest Black led worker cooperative development organization in the United States. So, welcome. And we may have to handle this panel ourselves. Harvey may not make it, so you guys might have to do a few extra questions for me.
It's all right. We'll work it out.
So you
Hmm.
guys have already read the session description in your programs. I don't want to repeat the whole thing. I just want to focus, that we're focused on the concept that cooperatives are characterized as being both enterprises and associations, and that their true identity can only be acquired if a balance between the two elements is maintained. So those elements, um, enterprise, which is like business principles, and association, which is more of our cooperative principles of coming together as a group to support each other. So we're looking at entrepreneurial innovation and we wanted to embody cooperative values and principles. So we have an objective in this panel, and what is that? We want to answer the question: how do cooperative enterprises pursue entrepreneurial innovation by embodying cooperative principles? And also, what challenges cooperatives must overcome for future success? We want to answer these questions in the context of building social capital through partnerships and cooperative alliances, which is basically applying uh, the principles of cooperative cooperation among cooperators and concern for the community. But there's always also the principle of education, training, information learning, right? Always. All right. So before I get started with the questions, I want to ask the audience members to prepare to serve as my co-moderators. So what I mean by that, I'm going to ask you at a certain point, you just throw into the chat, I volunteer. And I'm going to ask you to offer to our panelists a follow-up question on the point being discussed. So that's not a new point. We're going to do new points at the end. We'll have like 15 to 20 minutes when you ask whatever question or area you want to ask.
Yes.
But bless you, Omar. But as my co-moderator, I do want you to just help us to elucidate, as they say, the discussion that we're having. Okay, so listen carefully and let's get started.
Let's do
So
it.
our first question, and since it's really just two of us right now, I'm going to throw this to both of you. I'll start with you, Omar. How would you define social capital in the context of the cooperative world? And why is building social capital so important to the cooperative world?
Okay. All right. Well, capital capital is the resources that make things run. And we typically think of finance, we think of money when we think of capital. Social capital is the resources that are human relations, the relations that we have with other people. How good is our name? How good is our word in the community that we're operating in? The relations that we have. Like if that doesn't exist, then you're dead in the water, and that's a starting place. So we operate and we live and we're from communities where the financial capital is weak, but the social capital is strong. The relationships are deep, and the things that we're constantly struggling with, and we fall, we get back up, we keep on moving, but the strength of those relationships is what makes the strength of the work go even further.
Okay.
Let's start with that.
Beautiful.
Okay. And I'm
I
sorry, Joseph. I'm going to have you answer. I just want you guys to know somebody else is trying to come in, but I'm not sure if they're at the right panel, so we might have to break for that. So go ahead,
Sure.
Joseph.
Okay, no problem. I definitely echo what Brother Omar has shared. I would nuance that the value that's associated with the sharing that takes place, and he emphasized that so well, that we have a tremendous value in us coming together as a culture, in our communities that we share, and um, how do we utilize that valued coming together to generate the external values that we need in order to move one of our agenda items forward. And so as we come together, how do we pull together the resources that we do have available, as small as they may be, but also recognizing that when we do pull those resources together, the ideas that we share as well can help to propel us forward. And so I echo brother Omar.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the starting place for cooperatives. I mean, we're coming together people are coming together to meet their needs, and so even if you don't have the capital, which is where people are starting from when they're forming cooperatives, because the financial capital isn't there. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
The financial capital isn't there, but it's the relationships that people have amongst each other. Say, look, the price of milk is too high. We need to figure out a way to make this work. The housing costs too much. I'm not able to find work, but I've got skills. You've got skills. Let's start a business together. Do it as a co-op. So that's the starting place. That social capital.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Omar, can you give me some examples of innovative partnerships or alliances you've worked with that expanded or built social capital? And I'm throwing that same question to you, Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, for definitely. So I've been engaged in developing worker cooperatives for the past 18 years, and I may not look it, but it's been that long for sure. I started based in New York in the Bronx, and I started doing this work back in 2003. And at that time, there was only one worker cooperative operating in New York City. That was Cooperative Home Care Associates, the largest worker co-op in the country. And so over the years, I've had the honor and the privilege to be a part of a lot of the cooperative formations, the worker cooperative formations, and really building a movement. The most powerful moments that I've seen have been when those of us who are operating in sectors by ourselves in silos said, hey, wait a minute, you're doing this work in New York, we're doing this work in California, let's get together. So U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives, when it formed, I was a part of the first board of directors, and was involved in the founding of the New York City network of worker cooperatives. And then many years later, all of us who had been engaged in doing cooperative development work pushed the city of New York to launch the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative, and moved New York City from having one co-op, at the time when I started, to now having over 120 worker co-ops,
Mm-hmm.
and going from a place of being at the very bottom, in the country. I when I was starting out, there were only 3 Black people, in a room, at some of the worker co-op conferences. Me, Jessica Gordon Nemhart, and Adjo Nzinga Fateo, and it was just the 3 of us looking at each other. And now, there's been a huge shift, and that's come from the networks and the organizing that folks have done, to now be in a space where we can look around and say, there's actually a lot of us now. People are being inspired, and when we get together and we start meeting our own needs and building those alliances, then we're able to get those needs met, and that inspires so many other people who come after that.
Excellent. And Joseph?
Yeah, and well, I'll just offer an example that's here within the Greenbelt community where I work as the director of finance. We have a housing cooperative. Of course, it's 1,600 individual unit homes here. But in the city center, which is within walking distance, there is the cooperative supermarket. Also within the city center is the Federal Credit Union, which is a cooperative as well. And also within the city center is the New Deal Cafe, which is another cooperative. And so having those within the immediate area affords the needs of the community being met, and also provides the financial support that those cooperatives need in order to continue to operate. So working together in cooperation, understanding the cooperative business model, not just for housing, but also for a supermarket, also for a financial institution, and also for a restaurant, is exemplified within the immediate community. And that's not something that's that's impossible to have in other areas. And so we want to continue to share the cooperative business model. This isn't there are more people, there are fewer people of our skin tone within this community than there are in other communities. But the example that we have here can be duplicated within our own communities.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Harvey is trying to get in,
No
so I'm
problem.
trying to see if I can assist him. So pardon us for a minute. Harvey is our third panelist. I'm speaking to the audience now. It's you.
Mhm.
While you're doing that, can I jump in again?
Please do. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure. Just to share on the alliance building. I'm now, I've been doing this work for about 18 years, and now there's so much more momentum among Black people organizing around cooperatives in the U.S. The fact we're here at this conference has been just thrilling and exciting, and I'm just loving that NDCC, really organize and put this together, to move forward. So I've been actually working with others to launch a new, what Shelley has announced was a new global initiative to really bring together Black co-ops. So Black co-ops throughout the diaspora, around the world, Black co-ops and people who are doing Black organizing, for cooperatives, building support organizations, Black-led work, for us to come together and have that kind of momentum, things like this that are happening, to really share stories, figure out what's working. There's a lot of people, doing work now that are coming new and a part of the scene, and others who've been doing this work for a while. And it's important that we get to see each other and build and learn from each other, learn what's worked, what's not worked. What are the lessons learned? I've hit my head so many times, and but this is part of the work. We make the road by walking it, and we learn in the process. We make mistakes, but it's how do we recover and build back and learn from that work. That's what moves us forward.
Absolutely.
And it's
All
important
right.
for us to try to to take those chances and learn from those experiences. And I mean, that's what we've all been doing, and our ancestors did as well. So as we take those chances and we move out, we learn from those, we we share those experiences with others, and we continue to move forward as a people.
Absolutely. So, Joseph,
Hmm.
I'd like you to describe some of the more important steps in the process of building alliances, what you see as the more important steps in that process, um, and particularly for for Black people, and also within that same context, can you say where there's been what you might consider as creativity or innovation uh, in the process of building?
Okay, sure. Well, I think one of the things that we can do is to be open as we're making connections, as we're going about our daily lives, to gather as much information as we can. And what I mean by that is, as we're going about our lives and we're communicating with people within our communities, having those discussions about what's going on with them, how they're doing. And as we have those just general, information gathering communications that we have, we're receiving and understanding some of the needs that other people have, and identifying with whether those needs are things that are similar to us. In some cases, when we come to other, in other communities, or other environments, when we come together and we hear about how people are meeting needs, we can sort of connect those different areas that otherwise wouldn't connect to each other. And so I think it's important for us to always have our antennas up, to be open to receive, to understand, and look for ways to gather information, and see if there's ways for us to utilize that information to help the needs of those other people that we come in contact with. So it's almost like a connecting of the dots, but we're not sure exactly what that picture is going to look like. And so if we see one here and we see one here, and we sort of draw a line to bring those together, we'll start to develop that picture. And I think that's a sort of a general mindset that would be valuable to us, to to utilize and trying to create alliances, or looking to see ways where we can generate alliances. I think Omar has been doing many things, obviously, and so he's probably got thousands of examples, at least hundreds.
Yeah, and what I wanted to specifically ask you on this as well, you can also, answer broader too, but specifically I wanted to ask you how this is impacted when you're making these international like how the process might change or be different, what extra steps are involved when you're making those international partnerships.
Yeah, and so I couldn't really speak on international partnerships.
No, I'm throwing that to
Oh
Omar.
yeah, okay. I was like, yeah, we definitely have to throw that to
Relax,
Omar.
Joseph.
Come on, Joseph.
I can speculate, but that's all I can do.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, I think what's in terms of international partnerships, and this is new territory for me. I've got international relationships. Uh, well, I'm hearing a bit of feedback right now.
I am too. I
Go
don't
ahead.
know.
I'll mute for now.
Okay.
Oh,
Thanks.
you're able to mute. Can I mute too?
So I do want to say, just in terms of you know lessons from alliances and building alliances. One thing that is I've definitely learned is the hardest part of building alliances isn't actually that initial formation. It's the holding it together. It's the keeping everybody present to needs. Making sure that our needs are being met. And what do we do when we realize that there's there's different sets of needs, and people might be coming with different values or valuing different things and different priorities, different privileges. I've been really impressed more than anywhere else. I've been impressed within the co-op movement, at the way that coalitions, that alliances have formed, federations have formed, and the level of respect and honor that's giving to the democratic process and everybody having a say. And it's something that it's been something for me just to always learn from in the process, because these are practices that happen, but there's a lot of deep and cultured and embedded training that we've all gone through and we've lived with, as growing up, that teaches us to behave a certain way and look out for a particular interest. But within the what stood out for me was in the Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative in New York City, and one of the key, what I see as a key innovation of that initiative was really pushing the idea of an ecosystem, thinking of the alliance as an ecosystem, this initiative, this coalition as an ecosystem where every single group is playing a different part, and that's okay, that we didn't all need to come with the same strategy, the same approach. And this was something I was particularly pushing. My background is also in ecology, so I always, come with this ecosystem thinking and approach. But I was confronted by what I saw as just differences in racial privilege that different organizations are coming with, well-funded organizations, white-led, communities of color, organizations that are not funded, different approaches and different priorities, and really making sure that those that are using different approaches, that all those approaches are being respected and honored, and that there wasn't a favoring of one just because it was seen as the most fundable, at any particular time. And so being mindful of that, because it's those kinds of differences that groups then come together and say, well, wait a minute, we're putting together a budget, but we're going to fight because, you've got more money and, you've got more money, we've got less money. We want to be able to have more. And then there's, back and forth about who's actually putting in work. And it's the fights that happen in co-ops, about when you've got partners, people are coming together. Somebody may have more of an experience, more social connection. Somebody else is coming in with more financial capital. How do you measure each person's contribution? How do you measure what they want? And each wants something else. Somebody may be ready to leave the business in 5 years. Somebody else is seeing it as, this is the place I want to be for 20 years. I want my kids to be a part of this co-op. So everybody's coming in with different values, and everybody's excited at first. We're all excited. We all want to be a part of this. We all see this grand, big vision, but it's when we get into the daily grind and the work and we start to see differences pop up, do we create the room to talk those out? Do we create the room to work through those differences and, those differences in timelines? That's the key piece that makes an alliance, weak or strong. And it doesn't matter, I would say, whether it's in the US or whether it's international. We're humans wherever we are. We need to be able to work through our differences. We're going to have differences. We're going to fight. And how do we handle those fights and those differences when they come up?
Yeah, you're still muted, Shelly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry about that. And let me just say this before I make the comment. I am now going to ask audience members to throw in a question that's a follow-up, or to have our panelists expand on some of the discussion that we've been having. And the comment I wanted to make, well, there's two comments to this discussion, particularly Omar. Why I'm so happy to see you're doing the international diaspora piece. That we do cooperative conversions and whatever I say. But anyway, a woman from Nigeria had actually reached out, to me as a business owner who wanted to convert and really do some interesting things. I always answer because I didn't know where you might be. And, I was really sorry that I didn't have somewhere that I could connect her too because she was like in Nigeria. And so now I have this. So
Yes.
very pleased. And then the other thing was just the conversation we were having just now, which is talking about the differences in kind of resources, right? Between the you know white citizenry and the black citizenry, or even all the people of color. And it made me think about the association that you were speaking of, the initiative, and how we've just been having a conversation about, because capacity is an issue. So, right, when you get government money, you're asked to do certain things. Sometimes you wonder, you being given enough money to even agree to do
Hmm.
this? But then your
Well, I'm kind of.
organization, right, has to have certain capacity, like including the capacity to pay itself in advance while it waits to get that money. And a lot of
Mhm.
times, the black-led organizations or community-based organizations don't have that, capacity. So they were saying, like, over time, when we got this kind of ball of money that's divided amongst the different groups, it started off by giving the groups with the most capacity more money. And it creates this problem that, right, over time, every time there's any kind of increase, it's been like proportional. So those groups continue to be, you know, better financed and having more capacity, than the other. Then it kind of perpetuates this issue of the white-led or organized organizations being better financed
Mhm.
to do the work than the black-led organizations, and how do we address that? So I do see a question in here. Actually, this is from our organizer, Ron Hance, but I do think this is a follow-up to kind of expand on what we've been talking about. And it says, what lessons are there for mainstream cooperatives in building partnerships with BIPOC cooperatives?
Hmm. I'm gonna assume by mainstream cooperatives that means white folks.
Yes, that's how I'm going to read it.
Yes, I would say there are plenty. I think it's the same for co-ops, cooperatives. For co-op development or support organizations, for anyone doing any kind of social justice work or environmental work. The issues are the same. You have differences in power. You have differences in access to privilege, access to wealth, social capital. And so being present to that, constantly being present to that, and creating the spaces for the BIPOC co-ops, for folks to really be not just at the table, but to be leading, to be the ones that are actually really, if the conversation is about how do you start co-ops where they're needed, then I always took it as I took this as a principle within co-ops, and it's just a principle from the environmental justice movement, which is where I started out before coming to co-ops, which was that the people who actually are living the thing, who are experiencing the thing, are the ones who have the greatest knowledge and direct experience on what's actually happening, and can come up with some great solutions for those problems. So if the conversation is about creating cooperatives where they're needed, then let the people who are actually from the communities where they're most needed actually be the ones leading that conversation. So starting from that place, um, not making assumptions that because you don't see highly funded work, and well-funded organizations, um, that have a high social media presence and are getting lots of coverage in the news. Do not assume that means that the work is not being done, because I come from a long history of community organizers, and in my experience, and I've seen plenty of well-funded white-led organizations, and it's always the folks who are coming from the grassroots organizations who are doing the most with the least amount, and having the biggest impact if you measure dollar for dollar. So take that as a starting point. Amplify the work that's happening on the ground. Really center the leadership of people of color, doing this work, and really push that to the forefront.
And I think there's value to be learned from various communities. And so if um, if we're all, you know, transparent, we know that we can learn from others just as they can learn from us. And so a sharing of those experiences, and openness to see things maybe a little bit differently, I think those are ways to sort of bridge some of the gaps. One of the things that I think is inherent in this particular culture where I'm working is, they have no debt. They financed a $25 million home improvement program, um, uh, internally, and so they didn't go out to get any loans, and to have a mindset to do that, you have to be very intentional, and that's absolutely something that we can all do, is to be very intentional, um, and we have to be very disciplined, and that's also something that we can absolutely do. But just as Brother Omar had shared, it's important for us to be able to hear each other when we are in different spaces, and we may have different expectations, different timelines, but it's important for us to hear each other, and to be able to cooperate into that unified approach. However, we're planning to do that.
Okay. I'm going to throw this question, and I think this one too when we were starting. So I'm going to direct this to you, Joseph. Kathy Thomas asks, how do we leverage the power of the community of faith in leveraging social capital?
Excellent question. And I I think for the community of faith, and and utilizing the resources that are there, we all come together, wherever we are, in, you know, in our virtual churches, or you know, our virtual places of faith, with a commonality to, you know, to honor our, you know, our God. And so, when we do that, we already have, we're already unified in, you know, in that objective, to continue to open up those discussions, and to um, have those opportunities to bring forth the needs of the community, in the within the faith community, uh, to have those discussions, to raise the challenges that people are experiencing, uh, and to develop the connections through the faith community as well. And so, um, I'm actually an African Methodist Episcopal pastor, which means that there is a full district that we're connected to. And so, as there are opportunities, or issues that are raised, say in my local church, when we come together as a faith community, as a district, as an AME district, we can raise those same concerns or issues, and also garner the support that may be in other places of faith. Um, and so those are ways that I think that we can absolutely tie in, for those places where we, you know, we go to worship.
Thank you. Excellent.
Mhm.
I'm going to read this question from Charlene Orphe Jean Baptiste. I believe it's really a question for Harvey, who is still struggling trying to join us. Harvey,
Mm.
I'm going to read out the question. If you may be able to answer in the chat, that's fine. And if any of our other moderators feel like they can add anything in response, please do. So Charlene asks, I'm a black female farmer operating a 200-year-old historical farm in Louisiana, and noticed other states like North Carolina have successful co ops. How do we get our state to do the same? So, Harvey, if you're out there, either one of you guys want to
I
turn
can
that on?
add something. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
can add something. I am not a farmer. I don't know anything about running a farm. My knowledge of farming goes only as far as my garden. Um, I do know a few things just about pushing policy and getting the state, getting the city, getting a government agency and government to move forward on cooperatives and just have experience in doing that. I will say, of course, there are folks who've been doing incredible work, like for decades, like the Federation of Southern Cooperatives is the baking and groundbreaking institution. They've been a pillar for Black co-ops in the U.S. There's National Black Food and Justice Alliance is another resource for folks, and if anybody's not familiar with them, they should definitely check them out. I will say, just share a bit of experience. New York City was not a place prior to 2014 that anybody thought of when they thought of cooperatives, worker cooperatives, I should say specifically. New York has a history of housing co-ops, it has a history of credit unions, but not worker co-ops. There was just one that I mentioned earlier. But in 2014, the organization, Green Worker Cooperatives, the ICA group, the Working World, ICA, New York City Network of Worker Cooperatives, were joined by the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, and who came together. We all started talking about, because we'd all been doing this work. Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies was new to this, but they were hearing from their congregations, we've been hitting a wall with these workforce development programs. What's next? And so the what's next that came up for people was co-ops, because those of us who've been doing the groundwork of promoting co-ops had done a good enough job that it was getting to the congregations. And the congregations then were passing it on to the organizations that they're part of. And then they came over back to our groups and said, hey, how do we help with co-ops? And in this particular case, Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies had really deep connections in city government agencies, and it had, more importantly, had an arm, a mechanism for pushing policy. But it was through that initial coalition of groups that had come together where we were able to say, okay, let's set a target. We want the target to be the city of New York, the city council, and say, and this is the time, we've got some progressive people there. Let's urge them to go co-op, to support worker cooperatives, and see worker cooperatives as a way to address poverty in New York City. And they say that they want to create a city that works for people, for working people, and let's push them to do that. So we push that message out there, and that message. There's a story that's told, and I want to share this just for a moment, that there's a common perception that there's this favoritism towards any big, well-funded organization. So even looking at the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, most people from the outside would say, okay, you've got them on board. They're a big gorilla, in the room. They're going to be able to push this. And they had a great arm to be able to push that. But even with that, there are critical connections that need to happen, that need to be there, that come oftentimes from the bottom up, and that rely on relationships that exist, that have existed before. So they put out this huge call, to all council members, to come to an information session on cooperatives. Of all the council members, only one council member came. It was a council member from the Bronx who had about 6 years before attended was a part of the ribbon cutting of the first cooperative launched by Green Worker Cooperatives, that I was part of and had founded. And so I got her, to be at that. She remembered that she was part of that. She stayed in the Bronx. She knew of the work that was happening. And she was the only one that came. She was the only one that came because she had that existing connection to a group on the ground that was part of the event that was doing cooperative work. And that was coming from an organization that was not well funded, that was, Black led, community color, that would have otherwise been looked over. But had it not been for that, then she wouldn't have shown up. And she got really excited, took it to the council members. She was a brand new first, she had a committee. She just got charged with it. She had a hearing on co-ops as the first session of her committee. We all organized to get co-op members and everybody that we could get to come out to that hearing and really put the call out that cooperatives were a way of dealing with poverty. It was a way to get the city of New York to meet the needs of working class people and to move economic development in a different direction that wasn't just, giving tax breaks to wealthy capitalist corporations. So it was pushing that message and getting that clear and having a wide network and base of support built on those existing relationships that really got that message out, that moved New York City from being seen as what it still is. It's, a global center of capitalism, or one of the global centers of capitalism and home to Wall Street, to being a place that actually, for the first city in the United States that invested, in this case, $1.2 million into worker cooperative development. That was in fiscal year 15. And that was huge. That had never happened before. And it marked a change, a dramatic change, a shift in direction, because it's not like night and day. The city is still giving major tax breaks to Bank of America and all of the rest. But it marked a huge shift in recognizing what's possible. And that as a starting place for anybody, doing co-op development, whether it's housing work, whether it's worker cooperatives, whether it's farming, being able to pull together that coalition, that alliance, to be able to take your needs that you've all come up with together and put them out, build a base of support around it and move the needle to get, a city agency, a city government, a city agency, or federal or state agency to really say, we're going to try something different. It wasn't a dramatic sea change, but it was, trying something different, doing whether it's a pilot project, an initiative, but a starting place to get that cooperative foot in the door to say, we're going to try to do something else and then grow that from there. So it's gone from 1.2 million to Shelly. I don't, what is it now? Like
it's over 3 million now. It's okay. A little under 4, but high 3 million. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it's grown pretty much every year since. And now other cities have been looking to New York and modeling on the work that's happened, which is modeled on the coalitions that made that work happen.
Mm-hmm. And just before I do want to comment on that, and Joseph, give you a chance, but I just want to speak out now and excuse this audience. The technical assistance is, if there's anyone listening, organizer, technical assistance staff, I've been getting a lot of emails from Harvey, who is diligently trying to join us. So I don't know if someone can reach out directly to Harvey, either via email or calls, to see if you can assist him. I'd appreciate that. Okay. So, a couple of things like popped into my mind as you were speaking. And, first of all, like when you were talking about that council member, I thought about that's what social capital is, right? So something that's not money that has the value, that it's relationship. It's about using your relationships and the things that go with personal relationships, right? Like trust and respect and reputation, where resources can be shared or brought to bear through that. That's what social capital really is. And building on it is by building those alliances and building that coalition, and the simplest one that most of us probably don't even think about much is when they say it's not what you know, it's who you know when you get a job. Mm-hmm. That's the most basic part. Right. So, and they say, maintain that. Well, I'm old, so I say Rolodex, but I guess you guys, it's something digital now. So, and then also, I want to throw this question out because I was thinking of it. when we had the farming question asked and then the worker cooperative, it's like the world's always changing. When we think about innovation, I know we also think about technology as well. So, what effect has the innovations in automation and workplace robotization made in or will make in the cooperative field, whether it's agriculture, housing, or worker co ops? And especially as those technologies impact communities of color. And I also say where those technologies might lead to more isolation than the old forms of us doing business. So I'll start with you on that one, Joseph.
Okay. If I may, just before I respond to that, I do want to reach out to Sister Charlene and just say, continue to keep the faith. What you're doing right now, participating in, networks like, and resources that are available to you. Continue to keep the faith and press forward. It'll happen for you. So I just want to offer that. Now, as far as innovation is concerned, well, robotization, it's important for all of us to, and I think we all recognize that. Just as you were saying, Shelley, your reference may have been the Rolodex. For us, is it's the cell phone, right? That technology is moving forward. It's ingrained within all of our communities, and so there is a piece of that we're going to need to be aware of and to try to implement so that we can continue to connect and to change as the world changes. At the same time, the core values that we have as cooperatives, as cooperators, those things we don't want to lose. Those things we don't want to let go of. And so one of the examples I wanted to raise that took place here is we have regular board meetings, regular committee meetings, and that sort of thing, which was held here on site before the pandemic. And of course, after the pandemic, we couldn't meet together in person. We had to quickly adjust to the Zoom meetings, similar to what we're experiencing now during this conference. And so there has been a bit of a disconnect for some of the nuances that we all love coming together, having those one-off conversations, those brief connections that we have within our communities. And so it's important for us to try to continue to have those and to be intentional about having those conversations. But we may not be able to do that sort of spontaneously at a media gathering. So I think it's valuable for us to look to reach out to people from time to time and just to connect and just have those conversations so we still hold on to those values. But at the same time, when we're looking to innovate and to grow and to change, we want to be open to receiving other areas of technology and wherever that may be, and trying to embrace that so that we can expand the areas in which we communicate and how we can grow ourselves, as cooperators.
Hmm. And Omar, I'd like you to comment on this question as well.
Yes, thanks. Well, you talk about two different things: automation and innovation. And automation is, there's from, I'd say, like back in the 80s, there was automation became a dirty word, if you were a labor organizer, because
Mhm.
automation was seen 80s into the 90s, because automation was seen as a thing that was killing jobs,
Mhm.
uh, turning automated systems and robotics as the thing that's removing human labor from the equation. Uh, you know, but to that, I look at that and I say from the perspective now, you know, particularly coming from the angle of co-ops, is that, you know, it's a dirty word because of the relations that exist in the business. Because you know, cooperatives are about meeting the needs of their members, and a capitalist business is out to meet the needs of its investors. And so its investors are looking to cut, you know, they're looking to cut their costs, externalize all costs, put any costs on workers, on the environment. So they're not about, you know, taking on any costs. And so that means if you have the means of removing workers from the equation, then do so, and it means more profits for you. That doesn't mean that the technology is bad. It means that the relationship that's forcing the direction of that technology is what's the problem. In a cooperative, you can have the same technology serving a completely different purpose. So I think of Uber and Lyft. You know, Uber and Lyft use the ride sharing applications to be able to externalize all costs to the drivers, and so they're able to make huge profits. You know, to be able to move the needle in their industry. And so they've really changed the game, and drivers have really suffered as a result. But then I look now at the driver cooperative.
Yeah.
Driver cooperative is New York City based. These are taxi drivers who are saying, you know, we like this technology. We like the ability that people have to just reach us, you know, reach us directly on a phone. And I have a map and it tells me where to go. I can go pick them up. They trust me more. I trust them more because it's all paid. And so it's really easy. I don't have to touch money. So it's a lot safer for me. So there are needs that the drivers have, and say, well, you know, I'd like this technology, but I don't want it. I don't want them to make the money off of it. I want to make the money off of it, me and the other drivers. So organizing as a cooperative allows them to do that. So then now they are actually earning the profits from that, the use of that technology. And while there's now no longer a need for that one radio dispatcher, you know, at the taxi base, but now they have way more drivers. And so in terms of actually meeting their needs as members of the co-op is to create work for themselves and create work for others. And they're actually able to do that way more than they could have done before. And they're using the same technology, but it's the relationship that's different. And it's, you know, capitalism breaks human relationships. It breaks relationships and it turns everything into a transaction. And it makes it so that those who are actually doing the work are suffering as a consequence. And it's the investors that are actually the ones that are benefiting and profiting from that. So cooperatives flip that completely on its head. Your cooperatives are using technology to actually meet their needs as members of the co-op. And that's a huge difference. And, you know, that is something that is the direction that I want to see, you know, much more technology operating in. And that's the kind of innovation that worker cooperatives are doing, cooperatives in general are doing, because it's the same situation, you know, whether you could be a consumer food cooperative, you've got energy needs, you've got to figure out how to handle, you know, and so you got to meet those needs. Housing cooperatives are doing the same thing. Everybody's got needs that have to be met. And so what's the way that we're going to meet those needs that actually allows us to do the thing that is our mission, that is our core, that we're going to be able to push forward instead of getting caught in work that we actually don't want to be doing. So anything that's going to reduce the work that you don't want to be doing and allows you to do the work that you do want to be doing, you know, I see as a great thing.
Yeah. And also, you're kind of touching on the point without necessarily saying it, is that a lot of times the technology, which is important for those of us who might have less capacity, technology can expand your capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So technology would be something that through some partnerships you might combine to get access to it, like those taxi drivers have done, right? And
Yeah.
now it's expanded their capacity where they can offer what Uber offered after it raised like however millions, billions of dollars from the various
Yeah.
investors, you know? So perfect example. And then also it brought me to the idea back to building social capital, right? What's social capital? The drivers had the of the relationships with enough other drivers, right? That they had enough trust and respect for each other that, hey, we can come together, get this
Hmm.
technology, and do this for ourselves.
Right.
We don't need these, guys in Uber in California to do this for us and take so much, from us. And then the final point that you made me think about, and we had discussed some of this before, is when you mentioned the dispatcher back at the base. So I had a family member, my ex-husband's a cousin owned a pretty popular Brooklyn-based car service, and I'd be there sometime. And anyway, it was interesting seeing the competition that the drivers would engage in, right, for taking the rides. And it was very much like the capitalist system, and it would include them engaging in sometimes dangerous behavior, you know, and behavior that was bad for customers, because they needed to get that ride. And I'm thinking about that, contrasting that to the cooperation that the drivers co-op
Right.
has, and that's kind of a continuing kind of kind of theme. So I saw a couple of good questions in here, um, from our audience members. So I want to throw this out. This is from Anthony Cook. He asks, are there models of cooperative scaling their cooperative ventures, utilizing the social capital of their existing co-op to scale? So the drivers co-op was almost this, but it wasn't existing. But anyway, um, Joseph, I'll start with you.
So I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around the question. Um,
You want me to read it again?
yeah, I mean,
So looking for models of cooperatives. So that would be whether housing, agricultural, worker co-op,
mhm.
any kind of cooperative. Are there models of cooperative scaling their cooperative ventures utilizing the social capital of their
Oh,
existing
gotcha.
co-op to
Okay.
scale?
Hmm. And I'm sure there are. I'm having some challenges coming up with some examples. Um, Brother Omar, do you have any?
Yeah, I can think of one that jumps to mind, immediately. I'd mentioned the drivers co-op. That's something that wasn't existing. It was brand new, so they were starting out with this, what is seen as the typical something scaled up, something that like went big or go home. But when you look at existing co-ops, then the approach becomes more federating work, federating themselves, coming together. So I think of Up and Go, which is
Mm,
a platform that operates in New York City. It's a platform that is right now it's primarily cleaning co-ops, and so there are cleaning co-ops that came together that said, let's pool our resources, and get some investment to create a web platform that can market all of us. And so that's marketing. It's shared marketing. In the same way that you think of, there are secondary cooperatives. There are cooperatives that provide shared services to their members. So here you have existing worker cooperatives that basically formed a secondary cooperative, a shared services cooperative among themselves, to create a common platform, a web platform that other people can use in order to find them. And that is, it's classic. It's, how do you market yourselves? Well, we can market ourselves together. Not a co-op example, but New York. I'm in New York City. New York City has Fashion Week. Fashion Week is basically a cooperative enterprise of all different brands that are operating, that decide to put on an event that they're all going to collaborate on in order to get known, to have runways and have events so that all different designers can come out. So these are all different cooperative actions, and they're about taking work that individual businesses are doing, in our case cooperatives, and scaling them up, getting their message out, getting them heard, getting them seen before a wider audience, and making bigger sales.
hmm
Excellent. And that you reminded me of Touch Tone Energy, which was a part of that was a cooperative, part of the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, when there was deregulation going on with the electric industry. And so those electric cooperatives came together, developed that branding of Touchstone Energy, came out with the advertisements, the communication, so that they would still have a presence and be, be understood and recognized as a viable alternative had deregulation gone forward. So yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for that. Hmm.
Another example of scaling that I thought of, and I believe there's some kind of affiliation with Up and Go, is Brightly, where
Hmm.
they're using this franchise model. So they are cooperative,
Right.
and this is really an innovation in the field of cooperative. They're going to see about using the franchise model of expanding Brightly. So they've
Hmm.
opened up, I think it's maybe three or four of them
Right.
now, and that's I guess domestic cleaning um, co-ops. So those are
And
some examples. Yeah, Omar.
and Arismendi, the Arismendi Association of Cooperatives uses that approach, and they were the first ones that I'd known of to use that kind of approach among worker cooperatives, where they have Arismendi bakeries in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they have a franchise, what they call a reverse franchise model, where any team that wants to start an Arismendi bakery, they use the shared name, they get training from the other bakeries, and they're supported in launching that bakery. So they have a network of bakeries that they make really great food too, that become really popular in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah. And I say group, when I say we were recently approached, we haven't figured out how to do it yet, but I think it's an interesting idea that it's a person with a restaurant who wants to open a second restaurant, but doesn't want to do it under the traditional capitalist system. Her idea is to eventually open up a bunch of the restaurants, but she wants to do them as worker owned. So how can she do them as worker owned? And this whole idea of, usually restaurants open up different restaurants, but they're all kind of owned under like an umbrella. So she
Hmm.
wants to try to see, can she develop something like that with the worker co-op model.
Yeah,
So
I think of when we talk about scale. I've always bristled for a long time when people use the phrase scale. People in the field of economic development and governmental agencies and foundations, because scale is usually interpreted as the big shiny building, the big massive building. Like if you build something, this one big thing, that is what is seen as scale. But scale is not seen like weeds. Dandelions are much more powerful, and have achieved much greater scale than the Empire State Building ever will.
That's right.
The mustard, we, even in like Bible verses, when people talk about the mustard seed,
That's right.
the mustard plant is itself a weed, basically.
Hmm.
But people don't think of, like, when you talk about the mustard seed, people think, oh, you have a seed and it grows into this great big thing, but it's not the great big thing. It's this thing that that spreads out and takes up so much
Hmm.
space, and it seeds itself and goes to other places. That's what makes it powerful. So when we talk about scale, I think it's way more powerful to be able to have these strong networks, that to be able to seed and spread models that grow to other places, and that they're all linked and supporting each other. That's way more powerful than having a few shiny giant unicorns that never get repeated, and that people look to and say, oh, that was a great, wonderful thing. It's good for the history books.
hmm
And I
you
think
know,
there's some you're able to change to adapt, to be nimble when you're not that one structure piece. And so that the cooperative business model allows that nuance to to be nimble, to change when necessary, and according to whatever your priorities are, right?
hmm
It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily have to be, like you said, for the top dollar, but because of the owner member, whatever their priority, their joint priorities are, that's what takes the forefront.
hmm that's such an important point to make, because if you think about the American, right, the conventional economic model, most businesses in America are small businesses, right? It's a thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of
Hmm.
small businesses,
Right.
not the huge, you know, um, IBMs and these kinds
Hmm.
of Microsoft and things. That in
Right.
fact, the reason why America has these antitrust laws is because those are not really considered to be very good
Hmm.
for economies or for the
Hmm.
people in a society.
Hmm.
So that certainly is something that we want to keep, in check. And when I think about upscaling, I think about, like I said, like the interest I have is for them to impact the American economic system, to have enough of them
Hmm.
where they have the ability to be considered. Maybe we won't ever be like, oh, if all the big banks fail, we're going to crumble. So we got to save them no matter what corruption they did. But at least get to the point where we are such a significant part of
Hmm.
the economy that we are affecting how the
Sure.
rest of it, works.
Hmm.
And that is
Hmm.
going to be something probably more realistic to do and
Hmm.
preferable to do as a bunch of smaller groups coming together. And particularly, I think, for Black folks and folks of color, because again, right?
Absolutely.
You know, money, 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 or cream. And that's going to take me to this other question that Anthony had up for a while. And sorry, Anthony, I didn't forget you. This question is, so you think there is a limited role for an investor class in the growth of the cooperative sector? If so, how does that look to you? Do you want to start that, Omar?
Definitely, there definitely is a role. Yes, I'll start that. There definitely is a role. I think the wording is right. A limited is a limited.
Hmm.
The role, it's a limited. It's a particular role. It's a limited one, because for capitalists and investors, the typical relationship is you put money in, you own, and
Hmm.
that's the logic of capitalism. If you invest in the thing, then you own the thing, and all proceeds forever from the thing. But cooperatives, take a different approach because the ownership and the direction comes from the work that's put in. But there's been a lot of innovations that have been made, in the past few decades, related to this. Quite a bit of work that's happened that allows for quite a bit of work that's happened, allowing for investors to put money into cooperatives, take a back seat, and be able to earn revenue from the investment that they've made.
Hmm.
And so, that's looked like, investments in certificate deposits at credit unions that were directed to cooperative business. It's looked like, not class A stock or class B stock,
Hmm.
where it's a non-voting stock
Non-voting. Hmm.
for for the business. So you invest and you get a non-voting stock, and you get revenue from that, but
Hmm.
you don't have control over the enterprise. It looks like now you have seed commons, which is basically a cooperative of investment funds, of not mutual funds. It's a cooperative of worker cooperative loan funds, and all, not just worker cooperatives, but loan funds that are really geared towards cooperatives,
Hmm.
right, that have come based on the work of the working world, where people have been investing, and they basically have been doing what amount to long-term loans that look like, patient equity. You have investments in capital where there's a long window and there's a payback period, and they use what's called a non-extractive model, a non-extractive finance model. So it's not about pulling the most money that you can get, regardless of whether the business is actually making money, which is what happens with most lending. But it's actually, taking what it looks more like an investment approach. You're going to wait until the business is actually doing well, the cooperative is doing well. They've got some surplus that's been generated, and
Hmm.
then you get a piece of that, and that's what's paying back the loan, the investment that was made. So there's definitely a lot of work that's happened around that. Direct public offerings, thanks Sally, the same kind of arrangement where you're putting it out there to the public, and that's based off of crowdfunding. It's making crowdfunding, operate on it with even larger amounts of money, so people can actually invest. And you can launch, a food cooperative that is capital intensive. You've got to, invest millions in order to buy the building, get the land, and be able to get that from your base, a wide base of people, that community, and really do it in a cooperative way to really get grounded. And that's not to say you still won't hit roadblocks, because those still happen. But in terms of being able to pull the money in, there are now a number of approaches and innovations that have happened because we've had to figure out, where's the money going to come from. We want to be able to launch businesses as cooperatives that are worker owned, member owned, that allow us to actually be in the driver's seat, to have control of it, and not turn it over to capitalist investors. So let's come up with ways to do that. And the experimentation has been happening. So there's fortunately lots of different approaches that people are using, and I'm sure there will be more to come.
Joseph, are there any application of this in the housing co-op arena?
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, in the I think initially Greenbelt Homes had taken out a significant loan and purchased stock in National Cooperative, NCB, and that stock has a value, but it's not, we can't sell it. And so what we're able to do is, when they do declare a dividend, then we do reap the benefits of that dividend. And so I think that same principle is available to other cooperatives as well. And so you just like Brother Omar was saying, there's a place for a limited investment, but it's almost like a lifetime connection to the cooperative that would afford you the benefits of any future growth that takes place. That remains with the cooperative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Sally Stevens has a question. First, I'm going to read a couple of comments that she wrote, and then I'm going to pose her question. She actually posed it to you, Omar. Her comments were, and this, I guess, responded to Anthony's question. She says, typical investor model tends to be extractive. And then she wrote triple bottom line. Somebody may want to define that, because we shouldn't assume everyone always knows what these terms are. That's a pet peeve for me. Like, if you're going to say, you got to say what it is. Okay, so Omar, her question is, what about direct public offerings?
Well, I saw that. So I had mentioned earlier, direct public offerings are, we think of crowdfunding, and a lot of people nowadays are familiar with crowdfunding. Because you don't have health insurance, you put it out to your friends and say, I need $5,000 to pay my insane hospital bills, and put it out on GoFundMe or one of the other platforms and collect money from your friends in order to pay that. So that has morphed into the world of direct public offerings, where people are who have businesses and enterprise and can apply to cooperatives, are able to now put out the call for investors, which otherwise you would have had and have investors that are, you can get $100 from, or $500 from, or $50 from, where previously there are strict rules by the Securities and Exchange Commission saying, you have to have an inordinate amount of money, in order to be considered a qualified investor, to be able to be able to make that kind of arrangement, have that kind of arrangement with the business. And that's out of the ballpark for our folks, for many of our folks, not all of our folks, but for many of our folks in our communities, certainly the community I live in. I'm not getting any direct public offerings from anybody, in my block or in my neighborhood. I'm not direct public. I'm not getting any traditional investors, $2,500 or $5,000 or $10,000 minimums, and from anybody in order to start anything here. So what I'm going to get is the $25, $50, maybe $100 if they really love what's happening and pull their friends. So yes.
Yeah. And another example of like, right, social capital and building and building those partnerships, right? Because when you have a membership, then you are allowed to seek that kind of funding amongst your membership, and you rely on that trust that they have for you. Oh my goodness, is that Harvey? Oh, Harvey,
Harvey,
All right.
welcome.
all right.
I'm not there
So,
yet.
We can hear you though.
but we can hear you
Okay.
and we see a picture. And I just want to say triple bottom line, because like I said, I don't like to assume that folks know what that stands for. So that's people, planet, and profit, or people, profit, and planet, whichever way you want to do it, the three P's. And profit should really be last. So it is people, planet, profit. And that's like the philosophy upon which you'll be running your business, right? And there's organizations now that promote that kind of thinking. And you can get the B Corp certification and so forth. Um, so Harvey, what happened? I wanted to.
I think he's just muted right now. Yeah. So they were trying to get some things together.
Yeah, Harvey, I wanted you to answer that agriculture question that I feel is still like hanging out there. So I'm hoping we still have about. Well, we started. Did we start on time? I know the other thing ended late. So anyway, we have 8 minutes based on the original schedule. What's going on after that? So Harvey, hopefully you'll be in and able to. There you are.
All right.
Well, let me give a very quick introduction to Harvey, and then I want you to answer this question we had earlier. So, Harvey Reid III is the founder and the CEO of the Louisiana Association of Cooperatives, which one of our audience members was kind enough to share that with us earlier. Harvey brings more than 30 years of agricultural and fisheries cooperative experience to his position, which is why I want him to answer that question. And he's the former president of the Louisiana Council of Farmers and the former president of the National Conference of State Council Cooperatives. His service has given him a depth and breadth of governmental and industry experience, as well as a keen understanding of agricultural policy, trade issues, and the business challenges facing U.S. agriculture in general and agricultural cooperatives in particular. He has a passion for agriculture and a strong commitment to the future success of small producers and ranchers. So, Harvey, we welcome you. Thank you. I'm so glad you were able to get in before it ended. And I'm going to find this question that Charlene sent us earlier and ask you if you kindly address it. The question is, I'm a Black female farmer operating a 200-year-old historical farm in Louisiana and noticed other states like North Carolina have successful co-ops. How do we get our state to do the same? Oh, I think you're on mute. Huh. I don't know what happened. We
Still
heard
on
you.
mute. Still
Can
on
you
mute.
hit the mute thing again?
Hit the microphone. Hit the microphone at the bottom.
We
There's
heard
a
you
little picture of a microphone.
before we
You
saw
put
your
your
picture.
cursor
We heard
over.
you. So
Yeah.
you see the microphone? Oh my!
Should be at the bottom of your screen in the
At the
center.
bottom in the center. Yeah. There's like a camera, then a microphone. If you put your cursor over top of it.
Harvey, we can't hear you. I think you have to put your message in the chat. Okay, well, hopefully Harvey's going to be able to come back on and handle that question. Let me ask a couple of quick questions that maybe they won't be quick. I'll go back to the quick question because I'm worried. I'm worried about time. It's a little discombobulated at this point. So
Yeah.
let's go to this question, which may not necessarily be quick, but I think is an important question for us to ask. So at this moment, what do you see as the biggest challenge Black cooperatives will face as they try to balance enterprise and innovation? It's really enterprise and association with taking advantage of innovations in the cooperative space, applying the cooperative principles.
Hmm.
So, who wants to go first?
Yeah, no problem. Um, I, I think some of the biggest, largest challenges, greatest challenges that we face is in sort of a self-limiting, uh, where cooperatives can go, and what we have access to. I think you Shelley had raised a point that there was someone had reached out to you that wanted to duplicate her restaurant business model, and so she's looking at a way of doing that, utilizing the
Yeah,
cooperative
all the
system.
stuff, all
I
these
think
stuff.
we have Harry. So, I mean Harvey.
Harvey, I think we can hear you. Do you want to?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay,
All
great. We
right.
can hear you. Just hold on a second. I'm just going to let Joseph finish. Wrap up this answer,
Oh,
Joseph, then we're going to jump over to Harvey and let him
yeah.
answer that question.
Yeah, it really what it whittles down to is being
Mhm.
open, to be creative, and we want to continue to be creative and look for ways to utilize the cooperative business model in different areas of our lives. And so that's really the biggest thing I think for us.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, Harvey, I want you to go ahead and answer the agricultural question, and then I'll pose the other question again, and then you and Omar can address it as we
Okay.
close.
One of the things that we found in past history is that the black women are outliving the black men. We all know that, right? Men, we do that, right? So, and farming is not an easy task. And there's a lot of females, black females, that are farming now, whether they're doing it with their husbands or they're doing it alone, or they may be widowers or just a single woman. We're finding now that a lot of military women who are leaving the military is going back home to start farming and what have you. In regards to Ms. Charlene's question, one of the things we have to look at is that most states don't have state association of cooperatives, whereas that people can go to have an entity to lobby or to address the problems that they have with the state legislators or with the USDA or with the county. So these are the things that has to be established. Some of the states that I found that being on the National Conference of State Council of Cooperatives that represent 22 states, they do several things. They all started off lobbying for equity in regards to having more more power to legislative matters, education matters, and what have you. And I watched the way they all have worked in the past. These are the things that need to be done. In reference to Charlene's question, Louisiana does need to have some bona fide state organization that represent not only just one segment of society, but also represent everyone. Coming from the Louisiana Council of Farmers Cooperatives, which is a primary Caucasian, I found out they were there just for one reason, just to make sure that they got their just due and nobody else, because they made sure they had their little programs that pertains to their children and what have you. We didn't have that at this time. So that has to be recreated, not only in Louisiana, but also other states too, where you have people of color that are actually out there in the agriculture industry, whether they're farming or they're doing cottage type, anything dealing with cooperatives, because we talk about equity and what have you, but I don't think anybody know the true meaning of equity in regards to being fair and being impartial. A lot of the black women are being set aside because the black women that I've known that in Louisiana and a few other states that have asked for assistance and what have you, they wouldn't get it because the Farm Bureau or the USDA, it's the good old boy system. Put it plain and simple. It's the good old boy system on what they do for the black women. And I think as black men, we should stand up for the black women as ourselves, because it's just that we could walk around there with boots and big old buckles and what have you. But these are the ladies that really take care of everything. They bring a lot to the industry of agriculture, not only here in America. We could go all the way back to Mother Africa. the role of the black woman. You can look at it today. Who do you see out there in the field? You see the black women out there in the field, and others in any country. Now you have to be Africa. They're out there. They're out there every day with their hats on their heads, or they got their hairs tied, and they're out there, you know, harvesting things. Some may have their babies on their hips. I haven't seen one man with a baby on his hip out there, in agriculture. So
Well,
if we don't give credence to our black women, we're wrong. And we do
thank
need to have something set up in Louisiana that would take care of the female population. The white
thank you.
female population is taken care of. The people of color is not taken care of.
Thank you for that answer. I just want to point out it is 2:01. We're scheduled to end at 2, but we might go a little over. I'm not sure, but I do want to get your response and Omar's response to this last question that Joseph was tackling, which is at this moment, what do you see as the biggest challenge Black cooperatives will face as they try to balance enterprise and association with innovation and cooperatives in accordance with cooperative principles? So, Omar, do you want to go while Harvey gets a chance to,
Oh, I can tell
to
you
think
right
about
now.
it?
I let
Oh,
Harvey
Harvey,
go.
you're ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm ready. Yeah,
Yeah.
All right,
I've been
Harvey.
sitting in the barn for a long time.
All
Yeah.
right, Harvey. So we'll let you
Go
go because
ahead.
I
Go
didn't know
ahead.
whether you'd be ready for that
Oh
one.
no, I'm ready.
All
I
right.
could go. I could take it. But the thing is that the problem that we're having with the enterprises versus the operations of cooperatives. Uh, Previously in the other session, the young lady, she really did a good job on the principles and what have you. But those principles that was set up for the cooperatives, realize one thing: they weren't set up directly for us. Set up there over there in Europe. The Rothschild people. They was the ones. They had money, so they could have had 9, 10. They could have written the 10 Commandments if they wanted to. How much money they had, but that was written definitely for them. So I think that we need to look at those principles and see how we can intertwine those principles that meet our need, that meet the needs of those that we're actually working with, because we have to redefine where we are today, because a lot of things has changed. They see that we're moving right now in the right direction. As we move, they constantly move the goal line, and sometimes they'll move the stadium on you, so you never know what's going on. So I think that we have to redefine how these principles are applicable to us and what else we need to add on to it, or some things we need to just take and throw out completely,
Mhm.
because these are the things. I mean, it's good that those things were set up, but they weren't set up for people of color. They were set up for folks who had money, and before they brought it over here. And some folks like to go over there to England and get the blessings of the Rothschild group and what have you. But
Mhm.
they're not going to give you the money. They'll say, yes, we honor what you're doing. It's not going to get the money. It's not that I'm anti. I'm all for it. But at the same time, we have to respect ourselves, and what we have to do as people of color to represent, the things our ancestors, because this is 2021, and there's no sense of us sitting back here dealing with things that was only designed for something that happened, a long time ago. How does it apply to us today?
Mhm.
And that's where if somebody dealing with social justice, I mean, I stand firm on that. We have to make some changes, because I sit there with a lot of cooperative members at all levels, all different colors, and even the big boys. You know, as big as they are, they having problems too.
Mhm.
As small as we are, we having problems also. So, which means that we all are having problems. So we didn't cause these problems, but the thing about it, we don't put these alliances together, as we've been talking about, we'll never get to where we are right now.
Mhm.
So I truly believe that we should redefine and look at everything and see how it applies to us. Because if we still go by those, stay within those guardrails, we're going to find ourselves getting trapped in and not getting out. Because remember, they're changing things as we're talking today.
Yeah, it sounds like you're
Yeah.
saying as a community, we need to increase, enhance, and
Oh,
recognize our
yes.
own social capital.
Awareness, as they were saying in the previous session. You need to bring that awareness to those communities if you're going to do those stores, if you're going to do those operations, and if you're going to do those workers cooperatives, even the housing cooperatives. I mean, just like in the Massachusetts area, they have the housing cooperatives, but uh, and thing about it, you own the house, but you don't own the land. Does that make sense? But they, those folks that are involved in that, they're elderly, and this is where they're going to spend the rest of their life. They're not worried about the land; they're just worried about having a roof over their head.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I admire what you all are doing, because, like I said, I've seen a lot that what the heck that has gone on and what have you, and the government is there to take care of those matters, but they're not giving the money out the way they're supposed to give the money out in regards to cooperatives. Because you can go there today and ask for some funds for a cooperative. They'll tell you all kind of stories. Why? Because there's nobody sitting there in government at those local offices that understand co-op. If your legislators are on the co-op, you have to educate them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the better way to educate your legislators is put somebody in there who understands cooperatives in office.
Mm-hmm.
So why put an elephant in the Kentucky Derby? You know?
And
Okay.
I forgot to mention that Harvey is from New Orleans, Louisiana. So all that folk wisdom you're hearing.
Yes,
So Market,
we're still above water right now.
so Omar, do you want to make a last comment and thank you to our audience members who are still hanging with us. We're a little over time.
Yeah,
So
thank you. Well, I'd say, the biggest challenges to Black cooperatives, Black cooperators, and everybody that loves them was and remains white supremacy and capitalism. Um, those two things, and what it looks like concretely on the ground is Black co-ops being undercapitalized and having human relationships that have been broken, that we've got to learn how to figure out and get the tools to be able to sustain our underfunded, undercapitalized groups without killing each other, without going after each other when times get hard, without getting defensive, and really being able to work through problems. So there's the skills that many have and are sharing about how to work together and make decisions together and resolve problems together. And then there's the work of really creating the capital, whether it's financial capital or building the social capital, so that we're able to meet each other's needs and support each other. So the work that I'm doing now with Collective Diaspora to build a global alliance of Black cooperatives is a part of that work. And it builds on the work that is happening all across the U.S. and in other parts of the world, where Black people are coming together and organizing federations and alliances towards cooperatives.
well, thank you, and thank you all. And Harvey, I'm so glad that you were able to at least jump on these last 10 minutes. I'm sorry you weren't able to be with us for the whole
I was
time.
listening and struggling, but thanks to LaRon, he was able to do a Zoom thing. That's how I came in through the Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Because we had to
Well,
figure this stuff out. We could not figure it out at all,
yeah, I was having issues too, but as I said to you guys during our prep, I know I always have issues, so I started yesterday. I was like, okay, how am I going to get into this? So I've been sending LaRon endless emails, so I could appreciate the struggles. Um, I'm looking forward to hopefully meeting all of you in person, as I do
Yeah.
hope that we come together for this event again next year.
Mhm.
Thank you to the audience. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We're probably all a little late for whatever the next session is that we plan to attend. So to you all, enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a great day.
All right. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Now, who knows how to check out?
I'm not going to turn it off now.
I,
I think we just hit the lead.
I don't know how to check out.
well,
No,
there's leave in the upper right hand corner,
right now, so
but
Oh, you see leave in the upper right hand corner?
yeah, I see.
Let me collapse that and see if I see
Click that
leave.
button on the upper right, and that should take us all out.
all right.
I see time left
I'll
with
wait
nothing
for
there.
it to be open.
Upper right hand corner. I'm in the upper right hand corner. I don't see it. I see
You should see.
2D6H20M. Is it next to that? The time?
Oh,
below that, in the actual black box that we're all in,
yeah, just
where
below
you
that.
see our video.
A video.
Yeah.
Just below that.
Yes.
I
There's like
see
a
the video. Well, you
You
know what?
should
I
see,
see.
you should see the red dot
recording.
that says recording, and then there's a button that has the different people that are actually on.
Mm-hmm.
A little eyeball that says the number of viewers. So there's 15 other
I'm
people.
missing all of that. How many
Well,
other people? I don't have any of that.
All I have is the leave button. I can see the leave, but I can't see the other
Oh,
stuff.
wait.
Okay.
Now it's popped up. Okay.
Okay.
All
I was
right.
like, well, how come I'm
Everybody
missing
else is
all
getting
that?
a kick out of this.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Once you're watching.
It's
I'm
recorded.
like, which one of them is going to be able to figure this out first?
Okay. Once again, bye, everybody.
Okay. See y'all.
Bye.
All right, take care.